Hey everybody, it's Lyn from LynzCrafts. I'm just going to start out by showing you these beads that I did last week. Just all sorts of different kinds, and you're probably thinking right now, beads. I do have a tutorial on this, and this is the reason why I'm going to come on during this tutorial for something totally different and tell you about it, because the tutorial may seem a little boring, but it's got some great information. And if you really want to get into doing polymer clay, it's got information that will be useful for lots of different other techniques, I guess I want to say. So I've threaded it on my big hat pin here so you can see. But anytime you're working with these clays, especially the new Primo clays and stuff like that, they're super soft. So working on one side of a piece and then flipping it over and working the other side before you bake it can be just almost impossible. So what you need to do is to bake two halves and stick them together. Or I should say, bake one half, then stick the other half on the finished piece. In this video about the beads, though, the whole point of the video is to maintain the hole through the center. So if you want to, if you really want to learn how to do it, watch the video. If you don't, I totally get it. It's all just about how to maintain your hole through the center of the bead without it collapsing before you get the bead finished. And these are a hammered look, as you can tell. And what I did was, each one of these is just straight metallic clay, like this gold right here. These are that color clay in the gold, and this is just the regular Primo gold. Some of the others are Primo accents in copper, bronze, silver, of course. And all I've done is antiqued them with the black acrylic paint and wiped it off, and then barely hit them with a little bit of Inca gold. And because the Inca gold has a transparency to it, the three different colors of the gold, as you can see, still look like three different colors of gold, even though they all have the same Inca gold on them. So there is that. That tutorial will be coming up after this tutorial, just because I thought the tutorial would be a little boring if you didn't have a little bit of foreknowledge as to what the tutorial is going to be about. These are, for some reason, probably my favorites. They look like O's, but I love copper colors. Okay, this one is going to be more fun. I'm making masks just as a pendant. I don't know if you can see, it's got a hole right there. It's the back side. And again, this is going to be done with that same two-step process, 2 bakings. You can do it in one. I have one in the oven waiting to bake right now that I did it all at the same time last night, just to prove to myself it could be done. Wasn't easy. So the first thing I did was I took a piece of my ever favorite Georgia Pacific 110-pound guard stock. Comes from Walmart. Ridiculously 500 sheets or something. So I just folded the piece in half, cut me out a mask, and what I've done is I've curved it to the shape that I want. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do, whilst trying to stay on frame, which I'm not good about, and I'm sorry if my fingernails are nasty, it's just whatever this stuff is called, the antiquing gel, sorry. And you can just use plain acrylic paint. The antiquing gel just has a gel retarder in it so that it dries a little more slowly. So I'm going to take my craft knife and just real simply, you can kind of press your pattern into your, and you can just Google a mask pattern. There's plenty of them out there. I just real quick sketched this one out. And I don't normally work on paper. I usually work on my glass, but there was just too much reflection this morning. So your craft knife won't want to slide quite as easy if you're working on paper like this. If you had wax paper, if I was smart. But this morning I'm not claiming to be smart. I'm claiming it's going to be a warm day in here. My clay is already getting sticky. It's supposed to be 70 something, I think, today. Which I love. Started out about 37, something like that out here. Okay. So, the scrap, I'm going to roll back up because I'm going to roll it back out to do the back side, which we'll cover in a minute. Right now, you don't see much of anything, do you? Alright, lift up the pattern. And there we go. That's what we've got. Pretty little mask design. So you can take your, what I did on this one is I took a rubber stamp. Just a deep etched red rubber stamp, and this one was a Recollections Damask stamp from a Damask set. This one right here. Whoa. Right here. But you can take any kind of stamp, any kind of texture that looks good to you. And I'm going to pull out one of my favorites that may seem a bit odd. It is from the Stampin' Up! Ocean Commotion set. It's this one right here. But I love this stamp. I'm going to move the sample out of the way. And here's what the stamp looks like. It's just a really, really delicate flourish. It's supposed to be seaweed. Nah, I'm assuming. So I'm going to turn this around, and I'm going to use, I'm going to use this area of the stamp right here, and I'm going to go above the eyes of the mask. And you want to push on your rubber stamps pretty hard because of the foam. The foam will kind of help protect your clay from being squished out too much. Now, because I don't have a reverse of this stamp, so I can't flip it, they're both going to have the same design above the eye. Can't help that. But doing this part, you can really plan your design out really, really carefully. I'll show you again on this one how I used the bottom of that Damask stamp, and I went right down the bridge of the nose area, and then I took different spots the same, and I even did right here above and below the eye to make it look like it had lashes. And then I took, it's got this little flower design right here, and I filled in some of the spots. And then of course you know it has embossing powder on it. We'll get to that. So okay, we've got stamping above the eyes. Now you can change stamps here. You can do a different stamp. You can do the same design all the way around. Pick a different part of your stamp. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick up a little bit. This time I did up here, I'm going to do right here on the underside. Let's see. Okay, and on this one, because it does have a similar swirl on either side, I do have the option to sort of flip it. It won't be exactly the same, but I'll get that same curl, hopefully, in the same spot. Alright, see if I can hold this up so we can see the detail. There we go. And of course, after that's baked and you put some ink of gold, some metallic paint, some whatever rubbed over it, or just antique it, and it will be stunning. So, but the whole point of our pattern here, and arching it the way I was talking about, and of course it'll have to be re-arched between bakings, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it on the pattern. So in the oven, it will be encouraged to follow that design, just like this. And I have another one, but I'm not going to show it until the end, until after we finish this one, until after we finish fumbling this one. Alright, now I'm going to put that in the oven. You could put you another little curve of paper. You could crumple a little foil. You could put anything under there to help maintain that little arch. Since my baking dish is full of polyfill, I'll just bunch a bit of the polyfill up underneath the mask. So I'm going to bake that and be back. And just because I always forget to tell you, I'm using Primo accents in the gold this time. This one right here, believe it or not, was done with the silver. I know you'd never know that, but and I put that on to bake for 22 minutes, but my oven is cold. If it was a warm oven, 20 minutes would be plenty. I gave it that extra 2 minutes. My oven heats up pretty darn quick. So I buy my gold, silver, black, white, transparent, and usually pearl in the big size, because I go through a lot of it. So I usually just have me a couple of slices cut off that I keep in a Ziploc baggie with my other clays. Usually on my desk, on my ever messy desk, like I'm sure everybody who crafts has a messy desk at one time. So I'll be back when that finishes baking. Okay, trying to see where I'm at here. Here is the piece that we just did, and it's fresh out of the oven. Now, depending on what clay you use, your pattern may be stuck pretty good to the back of the piece. If you'll just wait till it's cool, it'll peel off pretty easy. I don't mean stuck, but you know, it'll be stuck to it. So we've got our piece. What I usually will do is I will take my liquid Sculpey. It's easy to get online, in the store. Michaels carries it. I'm sure Hobby Lobby carries it. I bought that one at Michaels years ago. And just like the clay, it doesn't dry up. It's got tons and tons of uses. And I'll try to come up with some more tutorials on things to do with it. This is a piece that I actually had sitting in the oven that I was talking about, that I actually did the front and the back together. Now, if you can see, and I can't see crap through the camera, but the indent from the stamping is not as deep front or back, and that's because you have to manipulate the pieces, and when you're doing it, you're manipulating both sides, so you're flattening out your detail when you do it both sides raw at the same time. That's why I've done the front, baked it, and now we're going to put the back on. If you don't have liquid Sculpey and you don't want to get it, the pieces will stick together. The more that you burnish the edges and put good pressure on it and stuff, the better they'll stick. I have heard people use other things when putting them together. I have no experience with any of that. I do have a little bit of a background in ceramics though, so you can use your craft knife or whatever and rough up the back side of your piece. Sandpaper, something, get it really good and gritty so that your new clay will have texture to stick to. And I do know some colors stick together better than other colors. So what I'm going to do, before I even cut this out, is I'm going to put my background texture on there. And this is just a texture sheet. Again, came from Michaels in the clay area. Whether they still have them, I got it quite a few years ago. So, there's what we've got. Since I already had my pattern stuck down, all I need to do is take my knife, make sure I'm in frame. Sorry for my hand being in the way. And of course there's so many, you don't have to do a mask. Of course there's a million things you could use the same technique to do. Flowers. Cut out a flower shape. Emboss one side, bake it, and then back it with a different embossed side. All kinds of tutorials out there on doing polymer clay flowers. I've done a few, but not very many. It's just not something I come up with a need for very often. Alright, now I'll take my liquid Sculpey, and one word of advice: super glue will not work. There is a product out there by Lisa Pavelka, I believe, that's a bacon, it's not the bacon bond, it's called something else, but it's basically like a heat safe super glue. It has an instant bond kind of effect like a super glue, but super glue itself will basically disintegrate if you bake it in the oven. Its adhesive power is lost when you bake it. Alright, so I've got that. Using it just like a glue to stick a baked piece with a non-baked piece. And it's kind of slippery, and you know, like wet glue when you first put it down. You can move your pieces around. The only difference between this and glue is it will not dry. No matter how long you set it there, it will make your clay tackier and tackier the longer they're together and the more you manipulate it. So you really don't want to manipulate it too much. Now, if the edge bothers you where it's not smooth, you can either sand that later, or you can spend time right now and try to blend that edge out. It's not very easy. And you can see on this one, as I've had questions about this before, I have not put a hole at all in it, and I did that on purpose because I will show you at the end how I stick a hole in it if I forget. So back in the oven it goes. This time it doesn't necessarily have to be on the mold, the pattern, to maintain its shape. To a small degree, it'll maintain its shape like this, as long as I've got the polyfill or whatever you're using underneath the edge. So one more bake and I'll be back. Okay, here's the one we just finished, right out of the oven. Here's the silver one that I had done before, and all I've done is taken some blue, let's see what's it called, blue sapphire folk art metallic, and I believe this one's amethyst. Yeah, metallic amethyst folk art. And all I've done was put a little bit on my glass over here and just dabbed it on. On this one I haven't even antiqued the details. I've just left the silver showing. So I want a little bit of, and this is the metallic peridot in the folk art. So I want just a tiny bit of that. So if y'all have watched me very many times, you know I paint with my finger a lot, especially on clay. I don't want the green to scream out. I want to kind of blend it in a little bit. Let's go on the back just a little bit. Sorry if my arm keeps being in the way. I'm not used to having my tripod over here on the side, but there was no way to there was no way to work with it in front of me doing this. Alright. And I hope I was in frame there. If I wasn't, I apologize. And I may go back and tweak that just a little bit and bring up the blue a little bit more or something. But I will probably do some embossing on this one too, so that remains to be seen. So you can use the acrylic paint. You can use, I have some of the Lumiere paints. You can use those. The Inca Golds, like I was talking about. You could do alcohol inks at this point. I haven't done a lot of alcohol ink on polymer clay in videos, so that may be something that I'll try to do later on. But I think on this one, I'm going to be totally and completely unconventional and do gold. I'll do some gold, Inca Gold. Sorry about that. Luckily for me, my camera makes quite a loud, it has quite a loud alarm when it shuts itself off. So my battery needed changing. But I didn't get any further. Just a little gold rubbing buff, Inca Gold, which from what I understand they're rather similar, except for rubbing buff is evidently a little more chemically, has a bit of a stronger smell from what I understand. So again, on these edges, You can sand them. You can take your X-Acto and clean them up a little bit, carving into them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to emboss the edges, so most of that will disappear. Sorry, I'm going all quiet again. Well, it is when you're sticking your tongue out, concentrating. It's harder to talk. Okay, so there we go. Covered with ink of gold. Baked. Ready to do some finishing on. As soon as I find out whether my lid is really on there or not. There we go. Okay. Quick side note. I'm going to take my craft knife because I didn't put a hole in this one. The first one that I did, I put the hole on this end. Then the second one, I did on the same end. I love that one. This one I put on this end. So I'm actually going to go ahead and put it on this end. I don't like that little blip right there, so I don't know, maybe not. Nope, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it on this end. So pick a spot. Make sure I'm in frame. Center of my paper. Alright. Pick a spot. I'm going to pick the center of this little clear area that doesn't have any indentions in it. Keep in mind how big your jump ring is, because your jump ring, of course, is not going to go this way over that tip because of the way the mask will hang. It will probably go more like this, if that makes any sense. So anyway, I've got a good pointed blade on my craft knife. And I'm just twisting. I'm using it like a drill. Sure wish I knew what the heck they're doing on my road. When you're, I won't say I'm homebound, I can get out, I can drive, but I don't have a car. So until my husband gets home, I'm basically homebound, as I always call it. So something is going on our road. We live on a gravel, I live at the end of the mile-long gravel road. Not up there where the city folks live, as we say. Down here in the boondocks. Our road starts off with horse properties, properties with cleared off acreage. We live at the other end, where our property is literally in the middle of the forest. We live in the middle of an oak forest down here. But whatever they're doing, I thought at first they were tree trimming, which in 15 years they've never come down here and done. Because through the trees, that's what the truck looked like. It looked like one of those, it's got the cherry picker, but then it's got the big area where they throw all the debris. So there we go. There's our little hole. Nice and simple. Very easy to drill in it. You can drill in it with a Dremel tool. You can sand it. Polymer clay is so versatile, so flexible. You can do so many things that I'll never even be able to show you. So there's our hole. At this point, you can antique it, emboss it, heat emboss it. There's so many things. Let me dump my bit of debris. Into my trash. Alright. But since it is ink of gold, I'm going to buff it out. Oh, I'm sorry if I'm shaking the camera. I do have a larger tripod, but it kind of has to look over my shoulder. Really wasn't a good angle for And of course, because of all the texture, it's tearing up my napkin a little bit, but you can use a soft cloth if you prefer. Holding it up in the light so I can see if I missed any spots. And then I'll get rid of my debris, so you don't have to look at that. There we go. Nice. Super shimmery. If you could see what I'm seeing, which I have no idea what y'all can see. It's a pretty glossy, shimmery, metallic finish. Now if you antiqued it, of course, all of your details would stand out in black. Like this. This is the same exact thing, except for this one is black clay. This one is gold clay. So lots of variations. This one is the silver clay that we've done just paint, metallic paints on. So there we go for that. And I right now will quickly show you. This is the first one that I did. Man, I wish I could see through the camera. This actually right here is a midnight emerald embossing powder. And unless I could get it in the light just right, you can't see the green. There, right there. So, there's that one. And of course, it'll hang like this. Let's see if I can back up. Nope, I'm backed up. I'm backed up. So, there we go. It'll hang like this from a chain. And again, this one's the black clay with the silver Inca gold. Alright. That's basically it. I could emboss on it a little bit if y'all want to sit through that. It's kind of noisy. But, what the heck. Instead, I'm going to actually do a quick goodbye and come back on another video and show the embossing. So here's what we did today. Masks. Double layered masks. And again, these videos are going to come out in the wrong order. I actually did these beads first. But since the video is a little, I don't want to say boring, because I chat just like I always do, but maybe a little more technical than the masks. So I just wanted to give you a little heads up what's in the other video with the beads, so that if you're interested, you could definitely go and watch that. And if not, you can perfectly be happy skipping over it. So I'll be back to do some embossing, and I shall holler at y'all later. Bye now.